Hey everyone, it's Thursday morning. This is First Warn Storm Team Chief Meteorologist Brad. Kind of a quick update on Florence. It's still way out there, but I want to keep giving these updates as we go through the weekend to kind of keep people abreast. It's still a long ways out, and as you saw last night, no need to get overly concerned right now, but I'll show you kind of the trends and what we're keeping an eye on and some of the things that could happen over the next couple of days. But again, the big caveat is here, we've got plenty of time to watch this. This is still 5 days away from being around Bermuda, so we've got plenty of time to watch it. Let me give you the latest advisory. Just came in from the Hurricane Center, and again, these will come in at 11 a.m. and then 5 p.m., 11 p.m., 5 a.m., so kind of that 12-hour cycle there. You can see the forecast changed just a little bit, maybe a little bit farther north and a little bit farther west. That's just because of progression of time. But the storm is much weaker. It's now a Category 2, and I think it's actually, that's kind of generous. It might be a Category 1. But you can see by Tuesday, it's still just around Bermuda. Now, the thing to remember about these cones, everyone focuses on the middle. I don't like having that line on there for that reason. It could be here. It could be here or anywhere in between. So that's the way the forecast is. So it could still be up here and it still could be down there. That's worth noting. And that's why the cone spreads out with time, because the error increases. That's why trying to pinpoint any impact on the East Coast is a fool's errand, because we just don't know. I can't be specific. And I kind of jokingly posted that graphic yesterday with the whole Atlantic. And that wasn't because we don't know what's going on. It's basically to tell you that map is about as useful as someone telling you the Pacific's point where it's going to make landfall. Both are completely nonsense. So just to show you what that is. So here's the visible image. You can see it. And you notice why the storm is weakened. It is getting beat up by wind shear. The circulation is on the southern side of this circulation. The wind shear from the southwest is just blowing all of those clouds and storms off to the northeast. And that's actually helping to push the storm a little bit further north. The other thing that helped push this storm further north is that it was really strong yesterday. Remember, it rapidly intensified to a Category 4, which actually made it go further north than the guidance. So that strengthening of the storm, that's why you heard me talk a lot about that, because the models struggled with how strong it was. They are struggling with the track. So you can't read into the track, because the stronger the storm is, the further north it was going to go. So it's actually traveled much further north than all of the numerical guidance, even in the short term, which is pretty impressive. There's also some dry air to the south, which will be something to watch today as the southern side of the eye wall gets exposed. If any of this dry air gets entrained, we could see this weekend rather dramatically. Now, the thing is, that's in the short term. The next 2 days, it's going to get beat up by dry air and shear. But after that, it's going to move back into an environment which is very conducive for strengthening. That's why you see it getting stronger on basically Sunday morning into Monday and Tuesday, because the atmosphere there is much better for this system to kind of crank up. So what's steering this thing right now? Well, a couple of things. We've got a high pressure to the north and a trough, but I want to show you the crazy spread in the models. Now you're seeing these specific line tracks, and people are pointing to this like, if you wanted in South Florida, you could look at this one member of this model and say, look, it could happen here. Well, no, it couldn't. It also could be over here. It could be here. It could be anywhere. Well, we run these models to give you kind of the likelihood, the average. And right now, the average of these is somewhere in here. Now, there's a little area over here close to the Carolinas. Yes, I agree with that. That's a possibility. But the one thing you notice, all of these lines, the majority of them, over 90% of them, show recurvature. It's just a matter of how quickly that recurvature happens. And again, this is just one model. This is the European model, which has actually struggled mightily with this system. Because if I go in closer, you could see the X is actually where the storm is. The black line is the official forecast, and then these are all the model tracks. Notice, if you look carefully, it's still, even in the short term, when we just ran the model, the storm is already further north than the main part of these models. So, if anything, it's going towards the northern part of this track. And so for that reason, I think that's something I would keep an eye on as we go through time. Now, the steering currents in the atmosphere, there's a ridge to the north, and I'm going to move this over so you guys can see it. I kind of went too fast there. There's a ridge to the north that builds back in after this first trough misses. So this trough right here has a little bit of influence on it on Monday, but it looks like it moves out quickly. But if it pulls it far enough north, it could go right over Bermuda or very close. Then another ridge builds in. This is where it gets interesting. The storm gets really close to the east coast, almost to Cape Cod. And then this next little trough comes and tries to push it out, but it gets trapped. It sits there and does a loop. and it waits for the bigger trough to come in and pick it up and then move it out. I actually think this possibility is very, very valid, because I do think what's going to happen is the reason you're seeing the craziness in the models typically means steering currents break down at some point. That's what the models are showing you. We always look at the specific line. Look how crazy these models are. I have a saying, and you hear it a million times from other people. I've heard it from professors. All models are wrong, but some models are useful. Even when a model is wrong, it's telling you something about the atmosphere. When the models go crazy, it's not telling you that there's no clue. It tells you the steering currents are breaking down, so the storm is likely to stall and meander. That's why you see crazy loops sometimes in those spaghetti plots. So that's what I think is going to happen. The question is, where does that happen? It's going to be a very close call for the East Coast, I think, but I think the majority of the tracks are still shifting it off the coast. And to reiterate that, this is the GFS model. The GFS model is definitely more concise. It's not as spread out. You notice here the GFS model, which has actually done a better job, and I can't believe I'm saying that, than the European in the short term, is that it has more of a track like this, which would keep it just off the coast. So in my opinion right now, it's still too early, and I'm going to keep harping on that because we're not even at Bermuda yet with this storm. But I really think this recurvature to the northeast is going to happen. It's just a matter of how sharp that churn is. The one thing to watch for over the next 24 to 48 hours, how far north does the circulation get? This is 26 north. This is 25 north right in the middle. It's pretty close to 25 north now. The more north than west that this system gets, I firmly believe that that means less of a threat to the East Coast. But if it starts moving more west than north, then you got to start worrying, because the problem is that this recurvature, once it occurs, you know what's going to happen. Is it going to be really close? Is it going to be further out here, or is it going to be just on the coast? I think it's going to happen somewhere in between Bermuda and the East Coast, which means the Outer Banks and areas near Cape Cod, all those areas that kind of stick out, have a little bit higher potential to be impacted by this storm. So just some things to keep an eye on over the next couple of days. It's still way out there. Remember, it's Tuesday at 8 a.m. It'll be south or near Bermuda. So we're still way, way out from this storm. I think by Monday, even Tuesday, when the storm gets in here, we'll have a little better idea. Now, hopefully by Monday, as it starts to threaten Bermuda, we might see a hurricane hunter or an upper air mission to kind of gather some data on what's going on over the western Atlantic, because that'll be key to where it eventually goes. Quick look at the water vapor loop Y just to show you this first trough coming in, this little low to south. This is what's creating the shear, by the way. The counterclockwise spin around this is pushing the southwest shear, so that's why you're seeing it being eroded a little bit. So again, it's kind of wait and see mode. I know it seems weird. It's not that we don't know what's going on. It's that the time constraints of how far this out is, the specifics of our forecast is not very specific. And anyone who tries to be that specific 10 days out is basically trying to hit a hole-in-one on a 1,000-yard hole. It's impossible. I'm just trying to keep it in the fairway with every shot. As we get closer to the event, we can narrow it down. And my goal is, as we go through time, we will be able to narrow down the threat from this to maybe this to maybe this. So the goal is to have start wide and kind of narrow our options down as we get closer to any impacts, if at all, from Irma. Have a great day. I'll be posting updates, of course, as they come out. The next one's at 5 p.m. But again, got all weekend to watch it. Have a great Thursday.